Hello there and welcome. In the previous episode we started working on the state machine. We added a following ability to the unit, so now he has an option to go closer to this enemy and he will detect the enemy and he will start following it. We can also command our unit to go and attack the enemy, and then it will automatically start following it, and when it reaches the enemy it will start attacking it. But at the moment we still don't have the attack ability available. We need to add this state machine, this attack state, and then it's going to work as well. So we click on our unit and we go into the animator, and over here we already created the attack state in the previous episode, but we don't have any script on it. So first of all, we're also going to make sure that these arrows are set correctly, is attacking is true, and when we go back to the follow state, is attacking is false. And we also, of course, want to disable the has exit time in both arrows. Now we're going to select the attack state and create a new script, and instead the unit follow state, we're going to name it unit attack state. So inside the unit attack state, we need to uncomment the methods that we're going to use, but instead of wasting time uncommenting them, we can just delete everything and say on, enter, and we can find this method over here. We press enter and it's just going to generate it for us. Then we need on update, and we may need on exit, but these are the three ones that we usually use. The first thing that we need is a reference to the nav mesh agent so we can move our unit. Obviously, we're not going to find it because we need to add a package. So we simply add using unityengine.ai. And now we can find this nav mesh agent object, and we can name it agent. Then we also need a reference to our attack controller. So attack controller. And we also want a float that will be our stop attacking distance. So if the enemy is a bit faster and he moves out of the range of the attack, then our unit will stop attacking and it will have to get closer to start attacking again. So public float stop attacking distance, and we're going to set it to be 1.2 at the moment. And you also need to notice that inside the unit follow state, we have the attacking distance. So always make sure both of them are close together, but not the exact same value. And also make sure that the stop attack distance is a bit higher than the attacking distance. We're also going to draw some gizmos to actually see these areas, so it's going to be much easier to understand. Now we're going to start with the actual state. So inside the onState enter, we want to add a reference to both of these objects. So the agent is basically our animator, get component, nav mesh agent, and we also want a reference to the attack controller. So attack controller, attack controller. Inside the onState update, we want to check two things. First of all, we want to know if we should continue attacking the target, if there is a target yet, and if not, then we want to go back to the following state. So we want to stop attacking. So first of all, we check if the attack controller target to attack is not null. So if there is still a target, then we also want to check if we did not command our unit to move. Because if you remember in the previous episode, inside the unit follow state, we're only letting the unit continue following the target if we did not command him manually to move to a different spot. Otherwise, without this check, it will just keep following the enemy and it will ignore our own commands. So we don't want this to happen. And the same way over here, we also want to check if we did not command him manually to go to a different place. So we can simply take this entire thing from our follow state and paste it over here. So if we did not command the unit to move, then keep attacking. And of course, if there is a target yet. We are going to have a method that is going to basically just rotate the unit towards the enemy, so it will look much more natural. Now it may look a bit weird, especially if you have an animation on your unit, but when we're going to add an animation, we're going to deal with this problem. So this is optional. We're going to have a method named look at player, and we're going to generate this. So we hover and generate method. We have it over here, but we're going to deal with this later. And then we're also going to move the unit towards the enemy. So when it attacks the enemy, it should also follow it. So agent set destination, and we're going to provide it with the position of the target. So over here, keep moving towards enemy. Now we also want to check if the enemy is in our range. Otherwise, we should stop attacking and we should follow him. So over here, should unit still attack? And we're basically going to copy this part from the follow state. At the moment, this is disabled because we don't have the attacking working yet, but we can uncomment this now because we will need this as soon as we complete the attack state. So simply uncomment everything, agent, and now you should have this part inside the follow state as well. And we're going to simply copy all of this and also paste it over here inside the attack state. Now, instead of checking if the distance from the target is smaller than the attacking distance, we're going to replace this with the stop attacking distance. And we're going to change it to bigger. But we also want to check if the target is also null. So either the enemy is out of range or the target to attack is null. So imagine we have a target, but then we command our unit to attack a different target. So he will lose his target, and this will trigger the attacking to basically stop. And over here, we're not going to move the agent, but we're going to change his attacking to be false because we want to stop the attacking. Now we're also going to add the code for this method. So again, this is optional. So all we're doing inside this method is using the look rotation that we have built in inside Unity, and we move our agent to point this direction, the direction that the enemy is at. So if the enemy is in front of us, then our unit is going to rotate forward. But if the enemy moves a bit to the side, then our unit is also going to rotate to the side. Now if we run the game, we can basically select our unit and tell it to attack the enemy like we did before. And now it will follow the enemy. And it will just attack it when it's close enough. Now, we can't see any difference because it looks exactly the same and we have no animation. But if we get out and we take the animator and we place it over here, we can see that when our unit reaches the enemy, the attack state is active, but when the enemy is starting to walk away, then we go back to the follow state. Now, obviously, when we're going to add animations, it's going to be much more clear, but for now, as we test this out, we want to just know in which state our unit is. So for this, we're going to change the material of the unit based on the state. Of course, let's also take the unit and apply all the changes, so all our units that share the same prefab are going to get these changes. Now we're going to open our attack controller script. Inside the attack controller script, we're going to create 3 different materials, one for each state. So public material, idle state, material, and then we're going to copy this 2 more times. We're going to rename this to be follow state, and this one we're going to name attack state. Now we're going to create a method to set each one of these materials. So let's add them over here. Public void set idle material. And let's copy it again 2 more times. Set follow material and set attack material. And all we need to do is get the renderer. So get component renderer, and we're going to set the material of this object to be the idle state material. And the same way we do it for the others. So this will be the follow state material and attack state material. Now, of course, this is just for debugging, because when we're going to add an actual animation and a model on our unit, we're not going to just change the colors. It doesn't make any sense. So this is just for debugging. And now we can simply call these methods each time we enter into a different state, and it's going to change the color of our unit. Now we're going to generate these 3 materials. So over here, we're just going to create a folder, debug, and we're going to generate these 3 materials. We're going to name this one idle. The attack we're going to change to be a bit red. The follow will be yellow, and the idle will be green. Or let's actually make the idle white. The follow will be green, and the attack will be red. So now we're going to take our unit, and we have these slots over here for all of these materials. So the idle will go over here, the follow inside the follow slot, and the attack into the attack slot. And now we also need to call these methods when we enter these states. So we basically need to go to each one of our states and change the material when we enter into that state. So we're going to start with the unit idle state, and right after we get a reference to the attack controller, we're going to go into the attack controller and set the idle material. And now when it's going to enter into this idle state, it's going to set the idle material. Obviously, place this line after this line, otherwise we're not going to have the reference yet. And then we're going to save this and go to the follow state, and the same way, after we got the reference, we're going to reach into the attack controller and set follow material. And then inside the attack state, again, attack controller, set attack material. So each time we enter into the relevant state, it's going to set the relevant material. And now all of our units became white because we know that they are in the idle state. And we're going to select one of our units and just approach the target. And when it's going to enter into its area, and then it's going to start following it and then attacking it. So now it became green because it follows the enemy. And when it gets close enough, it's going to become red. So this is when our unit is attacking the enemy. We do see that it works. And the other thing that we want to add, and this is again for debugging, is the actual area for the following and for the attack. Because imagine that you're going to have different units, and each unit will have its own attacking distance and the follow distance. So we should be able to debug this. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for you to fine-tune these values and find the exact good values that work for your models. So it's always good to have some kind of visual way to see these areas. So for this, we're going to add a gizmo that will basically just draw these areas for the stop attacking distance and for the attacking distance. So back inside the attack controller, and this is just because this script sits on every attacking unit, we're going to add on gizmos draw on draw gizmos, and this is just a built-in method in Unity that will always display the gizmos if they're available. So this is like an on update for the gizmos. And inside we're going to create 2 of these gizmos to show the different areas of detection. So we're going to assign a different color for each of these areas. For the attack distance, we need to provide the actual value, and we can know this by going into the follow state and looking at the attacking distance. So it should be the same value as the one that we have here. So we have 1, so we go into the attack controller and we set 1 over here. And inside the stop attack distance, we should put the value that we can find inside the unit attack state, and it's the stop attacking distance. So 1.2, so we place 1.2, just so the drawn area is exactly at the same value and we have a synchronization between both of them. Now with the follow distance, it's a bit tricky because if we go over here, our follow distance is basically the box collider or the sphere collider that we have on our unit, right? We don't have any kind of way to detect the follow area. The follow area is this sphere collider that we set to be trigger, right? And we set a value of 10. So what you see over here, this is the follow area. If the enemy enters into this area, our unit is going to follow it. So in order to actually draw this area, so we can see all 3 areas and we don't need to go over here and click on the sphere collider, we simply need to provide this value. So we go back over here and we say 10. And it's just going to draw a yellow area that will resemble the area of the box collider. But if we do it this way, we're going to have a different area. And that's just because our unit has a smaller scale than 1. We set it to be a bit smaller just because of the camera. And because of this, the sphere collider is also going to have a smaller scale. So to fix this, to actually draw an area that will fit this area, this sphere collider area, we need to multiply it by the scale. So we go over here and we say 10 multiplied by the scale. So it's 0.2. And now when we save and we go back over here, we can see all of these gizmos. And because we have many units, it gets a bit confusing. So let's just uncheck these units, and we can now only see this one unit. And if we move around, we can see that this area, this gizmo, is following our player. So we can see this yellow area, which is exactly the same as the sphere collider. The blue sphere is the stop attack distance, and the red one is the attacking distance. So when the enemy enters into this yellow area, then it's going to start follow it. Then when he enters into this red area, it's going to start attacking it. And if the enemy is fast enough and he can actually run away and exit this blue area, then the unit will stop attacking it, but it will still follow it. So the enemy should be very fast if he wants to escape the following area as well. And we're probably going to have different units, for example, dogs or faster units that will be able to outrun other units. So now when we run the game, we can see all of these gizmos, these areas. And if you don't see this, it's probably because your gizmos are not turned on. So simply click on them and it will show you the gizmos. And now we can know where is the exact area. So if the enemy enters into this area, our unit is going to start following it. And this way, it's much easier to debug and change all of these values. Now we can see that the enemy is very fast. So it manages to escape our unit. Only when our unit is close enough, it attacks it. So as I said before, in our final game, we're not going to have these very fast enemies that are going to run away from our unit. There will be some kind of balance, and our unit will always be able to attack them, or the enemy will attack the unit as well, so it will simply stop and not run anywhere. But we can still see that it works. We have the attacking area, we have the stop attacking area, and we have the following area. And of course, we can also command our unit to attack the enemy. So we have the reference to the target to attack over here. And when I click on the enemy, it will simply set it as the target to attack. You can see, and now it follows the enemy. We can also see this raycast that shows the actual direction our unit is facing. And of course, I can command it to go away or to attack the enemy. Now, little by little, we're also going to add different visual elements to our game. So of course, we need to add a model to our units. We need to add animations to this model. And we're also going to add different effects. For example, when we click on a unit, it's going to first of all show some kind of attacking marker, but it's also going to create this line from our unit to the attacking target or the enemy, and this will let the player know that he actually is attacking and going towards the enemy. So the same line that you can find in Red Alert 2, we're also going to do something like that. And of course, we're going to create different markers on the floor and sounds and different things that are eventually going to make this game feel very alive. So we're just going to hope that it looks good when we're done. So in the next episode, we're going to start dealing with damaging the enemy, because at the moment we're simply changing into this attacking state. And obviously when we attack, we want to apply some kind of damage. So we're going to apply damage as long as our unit is inside this attacking state. And of course, there is an enemy to receive the damage. Because if we have multiple units, they will all deal damage to the enemy, and he will get more damage as a result. So we need to calculate this based on the amount of units that are inflicting damage. And if you don't have patience to actually wait for me to release another episode about this, a simple tip for how to do this is if you go into the script, into this unit attack state, we simply need to go to the update method, and as long as we attack the enemy, we're going to inflict some damage. So before we check if we should stop attacking, somewhere over here, actually attack unit, we should go to the attack controller, target to attack, and we're going to call some kind of method to inflict damage. So receive damage, and we're going to provide some kind of damage, let's say the attack of our unit. So we go into the attack controller, unit damage, and we're going to set it and pass it into this target to attack, and this target to attack is going to get damage basically by this damage. Obviously there are going to be more multipliers, but this is the way you should do it. Let's just add all of these things so we can continue upon them in the next episode. So this should be also damage to inflict, and we're going to hover over this unit damage and generate this field, so it's going to get generated inside the attack controller. Public float or int, and this should be receive damage. But at the moment we cannot actually create this method inside the target to attack, because the target to attack is just a transform, it's just this cube. So there will be probably some kind of get component enemy script, right? And inside we're going to have this receive damage. So in order to actually save everything, we cannot leave this with this error. Let's just go over here and have a new script named enemy. Obviously, it's not going to be enemy because we can have multiple players and each player will have its own units. So it's actually going to be a unit, but it's not our unit, so it's going to be an enemy unit. But we're going to do all of this calculation later. So for now, we're just going to create this script named enemy. And now that we have it, we can go back over here. It's going to detect it. And now we can generate this method inside, generate method, and inside the enemy script, we can find this method over here. So it will simply take, let's say, public int health, and it's going to decrease the damage to inflict. So this is the very basic way we can actually inflict damage. And imagine that every unit that attacks this enemy will inflict damage on it. So all of them are going to call this method. So it's going to receive a lot of damage by any unit that attacks it. So you can expand upon it, or you can just wait for the next episode. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're still not a subscriber. It will help me a lot. You can also leave a like for the algorithm. You can leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.